Hi, and welcome to Poppa's Picks for Week 6 of the NFL season, brought to you by FantasyDonks.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know to start playing daily fantasy football. It's an exciting week, Week 6. Draftkings has offered their $1 Million Maker Tournament again. One player will be crowned a millionaire when games conclude on Monday evening. Hopefully it's me, and if it's not me, hopefully it's you. So without further ado, let's get to Poppa's Picks. And like last week, we're going to be doing it with the pricing lens through DraftKings to give you a better idea of how to set your Millionaire Maker lineup. Let's first go to quarterbacks like usual, and just before we get into the quarterback nitty-gritty, I want to say that Peyton Manning is clearly an obvious play here against the Jets, but he's extremely pricey. He carries with him a $9,400 price tag. I like him this week, but that price is absurd and really hampers your lineup. If you want to use him, just be careful of how you construct your team with that price tag. But without further ado, let's go to the other 5 picks that I have for you this week, which first we'll start off with Peyton's brother Eli at $7,800. The Giants are at Philadelphia this week, and Vegas has this as the second highest over-under of the week, set at 50 points. The Eagles are the second worst defense in giving up points to opposing quarterbacks, giving up over 22 points a week. Eli recently seems to have found his groove and is dispersing the ball through all of his targets, racking up fantasy points. I like Eli Manning as a good play this week. Next, that brings us to quarterback number 2, which is that of Jay Cutler. He carries with him an $8,000 price tag. The Bears are at Atlanta. This is actually the highest over-under line of the week, set at 53.5 points by Vegas. Cutler should be able to sling the ball around on the Falcons. Their secondary isn't that good. Watch out for a monster game, though, from Matt Forte like you had last week, as the Falcons are the 32nd ranked team against the run. However, I don't think you need to worry about this because Forte catches a lot of balls, and Cutler likes to throw checkdowns to Forte at the running back position, and that's where he could have a monster and rack up a lot of points for you. I like Cutler this week. The third quarterback I have for you this week is that of Kirk Cousins at $6,700. The Washington team is at Arizona, and Arizona's D is all sorts of banged up. They've got players out at various positions, and this isn't the same Arizona Cardinals defense that we saw last year. They're actually a bottom 6 defense in the league against the pass. Look for Kirk Cousins to have a decent fantasy game against the Cardinals. I think he can put up at least 20 points, and at that price tag, that's a good value for you to look at today when selecting a team. The fourth quarterback I have for you is a little bit in limbo. I'm going to go ahead and analyze it from the perspective that Locker isn't playing, and that's that's Touchdown Jesus, Charlie Whitehurst at Clipboard Jesus, sorry, at $6,200. Tennessee is playing Jacksonville. We know how terrible Jacksonville's defense is, and if not for the Steelers just crapping out last week against the Jags, the awful Jags defense, they would still be ranked the last defense in the league. However, the Steelers failing to put up points on them bumped them up a little bit in the rankings. I will update this later. Locker actually makes an even sexier play if he's healthy and good to go, because he carries with him only a $5,500 price tag if he's the starter. And like I said, I will update you as soon as I find out that information. I will let you guys know. So Locker makes a great play. If not, look for Whitehurst at a little bit higher price tag to have a great day against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The fifth pick I have for you is the risk-reward play as usual, and the risk reward play this week is that of Logan Thomas, the third string quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. His price tag is $5,400. and he is playing Washington. Washington is actually the worst team in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks, and Logan's price is cheap across the industry, but it's really cheap on DraftKings. Logan should be able to go for 20 plus points against this poor secondary. I think Logan Thomas makes a great play. There's only a slight risk that he's not the starter, and once again, I will keep you updated on that. But as a risk-reward play at $5,400, I think he makes a great value buy for you this week. Now that we've wrapped up quarterbacks, that leads us right along to the running back section of Poppa's picks. The first running back I have off the board is no surprise. After a monster week last week, Matt Forte comes in #1 in my rankings. He carries with him on DraftKings a very hefty price tag of $8,800, but the Bears are at Atlanta, and Atlanta is the 32nd ranked team in the NFL against the running back position. They give up over 32 fantasy points to opposing running backs each week. Forte's coming off a monster. I think that if you can figure out a way to fit Forte in your team, I would go ahead and do it, especially with that matchup. It's just too juicy. He should have a great day. The #2 running back I have for you this week is Giovanni Bernard. His price tag actually went up after a lackluster week against the Patriots run defense. He is $7,700 this week on DraftKings, and the Bengals are playing the Carolina at home. And we've seen that the Bengals are a completely different team at home than they are on the road, which is good for you and good for Giovanni Bernard's fantasy play. Let's be honest, this isn't the same Panthers defense that we were accustomed to last season when they were top in the league against the rush and the pass. This year, they're actually a bottom defense against the rush and the pass, and have gotten torched by by pretty much every team they've played, either on the ground or in the air. The interesting factor here is that AJ Green is likely to be out with his toe injury, which means an increased rep for Giovanni Bernard. Also look for Jeremy Hill to be a nice contrarian play here, as he is 3,800 on DraftKings. He put up 10 points last week in a losing effort. Jeremy Hill might get you a nice chunk of points at a crazy cheap value if you don't want to go with the Giovanni Bernard at the more expensive price. The next running back I have for you is that of Brandon Oliver for the San Diego Chargers. And his price tag comes in at $5,500, and he is playing the Raiders. And we all know how bad the Raiders are against the run. Everyone torches them. Remember, Jamal put up his 58-point game last year against the Raiders. 2 years ago, Doug Martin put up his 50-plus point game against the Raiders. Brandon Oliver is coming hot off a 37-point performance against the Jets defense, which, going into the game, was a top 3 run defense in the league. Now, I think that he's going to see a little bit of decline. Let's be honest, 37 points isn't realistic to expect week in and week out, but I would say that he should be comfortably give you a 20 to 25 points, and at a $5,500 price tag, that's great points per dollar, and something that you want to look into. The fourth running back I have for you, and this is more of a necessity play at the position than it is a matchup play, is Joique Bell at 3,700. He's criminally underpriced. The Lions are at the Vikings. Now, it's sounding like there's no Megatron going to be on the field for the Lions, which means they're going to have to rely heavily on the run game, specifically their pass game, like the passing to the running backs. Now, on DraftKings, like I said, he is dirt cheap, and the Vikings are actually a bottom 10 team against the run. Like, they're not super terrible, but they're not good either. I would expect Joique Bell as the only healthy back in that stable. Theo Riddick has a hamstring issue. Reggie Bush is out with an injury. I think Joique Bell is going to have a really good day and will probably get you at least 15 points just on his catches and yardage from that. He could be 20, 30 points if he gets in the end zone a couple times against the poorest Vikings run defense. That brings us to the number 5 play, which is the risk-reward play at running back. And here I'm finding you a min-value guy, and that's Ronnie Hillman of the Broncos. He is at $3,000, and he plays the New York Jets. Now, the Jets have a top run defense, or should I say they had a top run defense until they met the likes of Brandon Oliver last week. But the interesting thing is the Broncos run a similar style of offense to the Chargers. And what I mean by that is the Broncos spread the ball around so much that it makes it hard for you to adjust your game plan on Peyton Manning. That's what happened to the Jets last week against Phillip Rivers. I look for a repeat of this performance against Peyton Manning and the Broncos, leaving running lanes open for Ronnie Hillman. Now, there is one slight issue here, and that is that Juwan Thompson, this number 2 back in Denver, could see some reps, but he's also at min value, and I think there's going to be enough love for both of them to put up decent stat lines. Looks similar to like a Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill line, where Hillman will have more points, but Juwan Thompson probably will have enough that it won't disappoint you, and I think you'll be able to get a good start out of either one of those guys at running back. Now that we finished the running back segment of Poppa's picks, let's move along to the wide receivers. And the number 1 spot, it should have surprised no one that I'm going to say all of Peyton Manning's targets. Simply put, against the New York Jets secondary, all of Peyton's targets are in play. The Jets are abysmal. Demaryius Thomas carries with him an $8,000 price tag. Emmanuel Sanders carries with him a $6,900 price tag. And Welker carries with him a $5,600 price tag. Like I said earlier, as abysmal as the Jets defense are, all of Peyton Manning's targets are in play. I wish you the best in choosing which one is going to have the monster. I don't know how to look into a fortune ball and pick which one of them is going to have a monster. So I'm just going to tell you all of them are in play, and all of them should give you at least a nice line in around 15 points, so they won't hurt your team immensely. The number 2 wide receiver I have on the board this week is Antonio Brown at $7,900. The Steelers are at Cleveland, and Antonio Brown in the past has owned Joe Hayden's collective soul on the football field. I would expect more of the same from Antonio Brown. In the first matchup when Hayden was healthy, and Hayden is actually nicked up right now, which means an even worse Hayden covering Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown caught 5 balls for 116 yards and a touch, giving him 25 plus fantasy points for the week. Antonio Brown had a disappointing last week versus the Jaguars. As to why, no one's really sure. I would expect a lot of people would stay away from him because of that. Look to try to pay up for Antonio Brown this week, as I think he could drop a monster. He loves performing against Joe Hayden, as I've said earlier. The number 3 wide receiver I have for you is another guy coming off of a bad week last week, and that is Ravens wide receiver Steve Smith Sr., not to be confused with Steve Smith Jr. At $6,200, the Ravens at the Bucs are a great matchup for you to take a hold of. I would expect him to tear up this terrible Buccaneers secondary. The Buccaneers are actually a bottom 3 secondary against opposing wide receivers, which makes Steve Smith a sexy play. We've seen the monster games he can have. I think he rebounds after a bad performance last week and puts up another monster. The number 4 wide receiver that I have for you this week is that of Victor Cruz of the New York Giants at $5,800 at the Philadelphia Eagles. Cruz is another guy who had a down week last week that I think a lot of people will probably be staying away from, worried that Eli's targets are going to go to Donald or Odell Beckham or Ruben Randall. Instead, I think Victor Cruz is poised to have a monster. The Eagles' pass D is abhorrent, and they allow people to score on them at will, especially in the fourth quarter. Look for the Eagles' D to be that panacea of goodness for Victor Cruz. With that said, that brings us to the number 5 wide receiver, the risk-reward play of the week, and that is Mohamed Sanu with a $5,300 price tag. The Bengals are at home versus Carolina, and we have yet to see a monster game out of Sanu this season. But like I said earlier, A.J. Green is probably out, and that means Sanu should be the primary receiving option. If Carolina can keep their offense moving, that means Andy Dalton will have to pass, and Sanu will see even more targets and more action. If that happens, he should get well above his 15-point line that he seems to be averaging. But like I said, the 15 points won't kill you in a contest, but hopefully we can get his ceiling a little bit higher and he can hit the 25-30 point range with a little bit with an increase in action. That brings us to the tight end position. And number one tight end position, surprise to no one, is Julius Thomas at $6,700. Like I said, the Broncos are at the Jets, and the Jets are a bottom 10 team against tight ends. Thomas could easily be the guy that helps you lock down that $1 million prize in the Millionaire Maker this week. I will be playing a couple of Julius's. The second tight end I have for you this week is that of Gronk, and Rob Gronkowski is $5,800 as the Pats are at Buffalo. The Pats seem to remember last week that their offense runs through Gronkowski and their other tight end in Timothy Wright. I know it's a novel idea. Look for Gronky Kong to have another repeat performance of a 20-plus game against this Buffalo secondary. I think Gronk is going to have a monster, even though the Buffalo Bills have an above-average rank against the tight end position. The number 4 pick I have for you is my boy from CMSU, Delaney Walker. He carries a $5,300 price tag, and the Titans are at home versus the Jaguars. I don't think it matters who Delaney's quarterback is. It can be Whitehurst. It can be Locker. Either way, you're going to get at least 15 points out of him in all likelihood, and he has a ceiling of 30. The Jags are a bottom 3 team in the league against the tight end position. They would be even worse if the Steelers could have lit them up with Heath Miller last week. I love the Delaney Walker play this week. I'm huge on Delaney. I think you should be too. And the number 5 in the ultimate risk-reward play at tight end is Luke Wilson again. He carries a min-val price tag again at $3,000 on DraftKings. And the Seahawks are at home versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are actually a better defense than what we expected them to be, but they are still dead last in the NFL against the tight end position. Luke saw an increase in targets last week against the Redskins. He caught 3 balls for 40 yards, had a 7-point game. I think that he can have an even greater game against this Cowboys defense that likes to try to shut down the wide receiver position. Look for Russell Wilson to find Luke Wilson early and often, and at a $3,000 price tag, he's not going to hurt your team if he doesn't go crazy. I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks for this week. You can reach me if you have any questions on Facebook or on Twitter or on fantasydonks.com. On Twitter, I'm at Big Poppa Debate. That's BIGPOPPA DB and the number 8. Feel free to ask me any questions you have about fantasy football or about the Millionaire Maker or the different sites. I hope you enjoyed Poppa's picks immensely, and hopefully we'll all make some good money this week. Cross our fingers. Hopefully one of us makes that $1 million. You guys have a great day, and thanks for checking out Poppa's Picks.